After I blow up, act like I don't know you. Euphoria, I'm drowning in euphoria. Drowning in euphoria. Drowning in euphoria.
Hey, listen!
Lately, I have noticed somewhat of a negative connotation when you ask an artist about AI-generated work. Most will say that they don't like the idea, others are terrified of the thought, and this is due to the fact that if a job like art is automated and can be done within the click of a button, a lot of artists would lose their job. Seeing as once it becomes common for everyone to use, there would virtually be no need for artists in the first place. So, for an artist, it could take up to months to finish a piece, but for an AI, it could take a matter of seconds, which is why I can understand the concern. Even now in this current climate, this fact has been proven to be true. Allow me to paint a picture for you. The day is September 1st, 2022, and an artist by the name of Alan Jason came to light after winning first place in the fine arts competition in Colorado. Now, normally, this wouldn't be an issue, but it's how Alan won the competition, which I think is unethical. Alan decided that when he entered this competition, that he would do so with AI-generated work. This is where I find his actions to be unethical, and I'll explain that in a moment. But first, I wanted to talk about the discourse around AI-generated artwork and some of the misconceptions people are echoing on Twitter. Because due to these misconceptions, we have other artists on Twitter fear-mongering artists and creating hysteria over the subject. Personally, I feel like due to these misconceptions, the animosity towards AI art is misplaced in the situation. The first misconception is AI art is not real art. Simply put, that is not true. And while many artists may feel like this, it is simply not the case. We as humans have these classifications, but something as complex as art can't be held to one single definition. But for the sake of charitability, I'll be using the standard definition. Art is classified as the expression or application of human imagination, typically a visual form such as painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power. Or it can be the various branches of creative activity such as painting, music, literature, and dance. This applies to both digital and traditional works. And while many people will latch on to the human aspect of the definition, that does not necessarily mean that AI-generated art is not within its means of that classification. Other than the human aspect of the definition, AI-generated artwork is a form of expression. It does express powerful emotion depending on the prompt you give the AI. Artists claim that because the AI is not sentient, then the work itself is not art, because it was not made by a human. And contrary to popular belief, we have other beings on this planet who have created works of art, such as penguins, elephants, cats and dogs, even gorillas and monkeys can express themselves if given the proper guidance and tools. And science has speculated that we ourselves are descendants of monkeys. We praise this kind of behavior from them, but vilify the actions of something that hasn't yet reached its sentience. I feel like this is hypocritical to not call it real art simply because it's not made by a human. But the canvas that you have your pet walk across and hanging in your living room is a true form of an expression of art, implying that simply because something does not have the same sentience as you is bad faith and not a good argument to make in the matter of the subject. I feel personally the reason for this misconception is due to the misplaced anger artists tend to have about the subject matter. And while I feel like the anger of potentially losing your job is justified, I don't think getting mad at a machine is productive. The second misconception is AI-generated art is stealing art from artists to create its work. This again is not true. AI can construct novel works through machine learning, using various self-learning algorithms that derive knowledge from data. AI art is the result of a collaboration between an artist and an AI system, but the level of autonomy can vary considerably, and the outcome relies heavily on the quality of the data that the AI learns from. So, if you only have beginner art within the database, the AI will generate art based on that level. The same can be said for intermediate and professional skill levels. And while people may believe that their art is being stolen, simply put, it is not. This is due to the fact that the AI itself is using photo bashing techniques in order to create its own form of art, and therefore is deemed transformative by nature, even if you can find a watermark of another artist within the AI-generated work. That is not necessarily the AI's fault. It is because using a watermark is a common feature in the art scene. So the AI determines that a watermark is needed or at sometimes necessary because it is commonly used within the art scene. anything. But because the AI itself has no sense of individuality or identity or being, it relies on its database to create a signature and or watermark by using what is there for them. And you also need to understand that you as an artist put your work out there publicly. And while you own the image in its entirety, if someone was to take something from you and distort that image and make it into something else, it then becomes fair use and transformative by nature. Due to copyright law, the AI in question is not infringing on any of the artist's work that may lie within its database, because the art that is created by the AI itself is not a one-to-one comparison. For something to be classified as copyright infringement, which is what people are claiming when they say that AI is stealing art from artists, that AI would have to be stealing the image in its entirety, and once the image deviates from its original image, it is deemed transformative by nature. Therefore, the AI-generated art is protected by copyright law and under fair use law. The AI would have to be stealing the image in its entirety. Once the image deviates from the original image, it's basically deemed its own image. Humans use the same method of photo bashing, but because no one is complaining because a human did it, it's because a machine did it in less than a blink of an eye. And this is what frustrates artists and where their anger comes from, which again is why I feel like it's misplaced. Don't be mad at a machine for doing this job. It's a machine. Be mad at the man using the machine and taking all the credit for the work, which in this case Alan did. The third misconception is AI is a tool for artists to use, so you really shouldn't be mad that Alan is just using a tool. Some will claim that this is no different than using a tablet, a ruler, or a pencil, which to some extent you are correct, but in this case it is not true. No matter what the tool is, when it comes to art, it is always being controlled by the artist. But with the AI generation, the AI is doing most of the work. The only human element applied here is the prompt that is being received to the AI. The artist in question never stroked a brush, never picked up a tablet pen, or spent hours rendering or refining their work. While the AI is a tool to create art, it is doing 90% of the work, while the human is only doing 10% of the work. With digital art, the human is doing 80% of the work and the tablet is doing 20% of the work, and due to the fact that we can use shortcuts. Along with traditional art, where the human is doing 90% of the work and the tools are doing 10% of the work, i.e. the paper, the pencil, the ruler, you name it. So for most of the mediums that I've listed, it is still the artist controlling that tool and giving that human guidance an element. This is because that the work is still being done by the artist and not heavily reliant on the tool itself, unlike with the AI generation. For Alan, it took him weeks to create this piece, quote unquote, and for the other participants, this was a time-consuming process, which they could have been working on for months to a year, which they could have done multiple submissions for this event, as artists tend to do because they tend to not be satisfied with their work, especially when it comes to competition. The artist does not simply rely on these tools to get the art done, unlike with AI-generated art. They rely on their skills. They rely on their knowledge as an artist. They rely on themselves. The person creating the generated art did not physically put any work into the art other than giving the AI prompts to work off of. And I will admit, that is a time-consuming process in of itself, but it is not comparable to the process it takes to actually create a piece. And I don't think it's fair for people to be comparing them and basically saying that they're the same. They're not. Acknowledge that they're not and move on. This is why, at least in art and in competitions, I do not consider AI art to be a legitimate tool unless you create the AI yourself, or unless the image that you created from somebody else's AI and you edited it, so that at least you can say that you worked on the piece. But Alan did not do any of that. He continued to use the AI in of itself in its entirety. Now, while looking into the subject, I decided to check the fine arts competition and entry requirements, just to check to make sure that Alan didn't do anything against the rules. And while overlooking these requirements, I found that there isn't anything against what Alan was doing. If anything, the requirements only cover the disqualifications of a piece of work, but does not explicitly state that this kind of medium is forbidden. So, as far as I can tell, Alan followed the rules, and by technicality, won fair and square. But what is so unethical about this is that the other artists who participated spent months or maybe even a year, seeing as the year was the deadline, only to lose the battle before they even had a fair fight. Even though this contest is for digital-based work, and AI artwork is digital-based medium, the other artists who participate spent physical labor and many restless nights to get these works featured and showcased. These artists entered this competition with the implication that everyone was using the same medium or similar mediums to showcase their work. Digital software, 3D software, and even coding. These artists entered this competition with the implication that each participant created their work by hand to some extent, even though the work is digitally based. The judges of this event judged this work based on the implication that the work was solely created by the creator digitally and physically. If the judges had prior knowledge that the work that won the showcase was created by a machine and not by Alan himself, but with his directive drive, I'm sure that this piece would have been disqualified. This is a competition to showcase skill, and Alan does not qualify because he himself exerted no skill. He relied on a program to showcase the skill that he himself lacks, and the lack of transparency here is alarming. While Alan did identify the software that he used, he did not explicitly state that it was an AI, and I bet you any amount of money, if a judge is not familiar with this particular AI, they might confuse it with a drawing software rather than an AI program. Alan even alluded to the fact that he did not explicitly state this matter on the Midjourney official Discord. When asked, he simply said, and I quote, "I have to tell them that too," which is an indication of deception. If you were so proud of your work and what you did and the time and effort that you spent into the piece, you would not be hiding these things and just not disclosing the tools that you use. But Alan did not disclose the process until after he won the competition. This took opportunities away from artists who were hoping to use this event as a way to not only showcase their work, but to showcase the years of skills that they built to achieve the work of that caliber. It's also for exposure. While I don't like the practices of these events and these fairs, artists do attend them. Alan, however, only spent weeks honing his newfound artistic abilities. When someone allows a machine to do all the hard work for them, like basically composition, color theory, and perspective, it is not even comparable to digital art in the process of it, especially with a competition environment. I do not think he won fairly due to his deception. Someone who actually put an effort and time into the piece that they made are much more deserving of the blue ribbon rather than him. And while in this case there wasn't a cash prize, these events can often have cash prizes. And what's to stop other grifters from stealing the spotlight from artists and opportunity from artists and taking away real opportunities from them by using this method? Because it is easy as clicking a button. I also don't think ill of Alan. I'm just disappointed in his behavior. People who create AI generated art know that the work is not created by them, and that's okay. You should embrace that, because now we have technology that allows people to create images that they themselves could not create before. I also understand not every person is able to commission an artist, so you should only be able to commission somebody if you have the means to. But for those who cannot, I'm not against AI generated art and the creation of it. My issue is when it's applied to competitions in a field that they are bound to succeed in. Maybe if it had its own subcategory in its own competition, I would not have a problem with it. That way, people creating these forms of expression and these forms of art have their own place where they can showcase their work and where they can thrive. Instead of getting mad at this new wave of expression, we should allow people to use it. But we need to regulate when and where it can be used, such as competition events or showcasing. We also need to regulate how much ownership someone has over AI generated work. Similar to how films have creative directors, that way when they get credit for their input, they're getting the credit they deserve, but they don't take full credit for the creation in of itself, at least until the AI itself reaches its own sentience. Once that happens, as wild and nonsensical as this may sound, the AI will be the owner of the work once that happens, because it is extremely easy to claim that you did all the work without putting in the effort. So for semantics, let's say Alan can own the distribution rights and can make money off of the work, and he can own the IP, but he cannot claim the work solely as his creation, just that he is the creative director behind the machine. The intent of the AI is far different from the intent of a human. This is often why when you look at AI generated art, the depiction is warped and nonsensical because the AI is trying to guess where the elements should go, but humans know where these elements should go from experience. And while I don't doubt the process of Alan, it's common for most artists to have process shots of their work, even with photo bashing. But to me, and to most people, it just seems like Alan spent 2 weeks deciding which AI generated image was the most valuable and the most pretty. It essentially feels like a slap in the face to the artists who physically spent time and hours into their work. For a matter of perspective, I'll be showcasing a piece of work that took me 11 hours to make. This was 11 hours of no breaks, other than to use the facilities. This was 11 hours of concentration. This was also a piece of me attempting a style that I'm not familiar with, and through that, you get the result that I show before you. Alan did not do the work, therefore Alan unfairly attained his win through false pretenses. At the end of the day, we can't stop new forms of art from changing the artisphere, and we can only adapt and accept the reality in front of us. If you're an artist and you're worrying about AIs taking your job away from you, I say embrace this new form of art. Allow it to motivate you to become better than what you were before. Don't let this discourage you from making the art you want to make. Use this as cannon fire to ignite the flames within your heart, and don't allow this to deter you from your expression. This is why art can have many meanings and interpretations. Art is not limited to only you, but it's for everyone and everything that exists in this universe. So allow it to grow into something beautiful rather than feed into hate and animosity towards the subject. Be more proactive rather than reactive, because I'll be honest, when this first came to my knowledge, I was scared and I felt like everything was going to be replaced. Like I was going to be replaced, and that people that do art was going to be replaced. People wouldn't need me or artists anymore, and I almost allowed myself to be swayed by my negative emotions. And that's why I made this video, because I would rather learn about what scares me than allow it to control my life. Allow yourself to take back your power and do what you do best. Create. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you liked the video, then leave a like on the video. If you don't like what I said today, then leave a comment down below and we can argue about it. Anyways, thank you so much for your time today. I hope you have a good day. Anyways, I'll see you in the next one. Johnny!
I'm drowning in euphoria. Drowning in euphoria. Euphoria.